The 100-legged worm was dead but not stiff, let alone Chi Tianji, a powerful person who had touched the threshold of the Void King stage with one foot. Even if he was at a disadvantageous state a little, he was not discouraged, he just wanted to do his best to defeat Yonkai. Old things, choosing to fight for your physical strength in this kind of place is the biggest mistake of your life. Now is the time to pay the price for your choice. Yonkai is bathing in blood, he was fighting heartily, roaring. A layer of 5-color brilliance suddenly burst out of his body. Gold, blue, white, red, and yellow, converging and merging, brilliant and colorful, domineering, the 5-color light lingers on Yonkai, making a chi-chi-chi sound. 5 elements indestructible sword chi. Yonkai's already extremely powerful aura once again skyrocketed, and what followed was an even more frightening force, violent, a force that seemed to be able to break the world, shot out from Yonkai's body. Chi Tianji was horrified. Having been fighting personally with Yonkai, with his fists and feet, he could clearly understand the changes in Yonkai's body than anyone else. When the 5-color brilliance appeared, his strength increased by more than 30%. 30% may not seem to be much, but it has extended the originally weak advantage to the limit. Boom. Yonkai blasted out a punch. Chi Tianji raised his hand to block, but he couldn't resist this catastrophic blow at all. He was beaten back with his palm imprinted on his chest. There was a sound of broken bones. Chi Tianji's chest was sunken, and the raised hands were also drooping. He tempered his flesh and bones for hundreds of thousands of years, and he couldn't resist such a blow at all, and he burst open. The clear sound of bone fracture sounded one after another coming from Chi Tianji's body, and Yonkai punched it again and again, raining punches on the opponent. Fang Peng's face twitched while watching, and the corners of his eyes jumped wildly. Chi Tianji screamed in horror, his courage was cracked, and he no longer dared to confront Yonkai head-on, and subconsciously began to avoid him and want to pull back. How can Yonkai let him do what he wants? Like a mad beast, he stayed close to Chi Tianji and continues to bombard him with his fist. Chi Tianji's extremely strong body was beaten into a piece of flesh and blood, with almost no part intact, his skin cracked, and his flesh and blood was exposed. The bone broke, and the bones is poking out, visible to the naked eye. He screamed repeatedly, but couldn't dodge, and was blown to fresh blood by Yonkai. The battlefield he chose deliberately became his fatal constraint. He couldn't move his figure and display his body skills at all. Boom. Yonkai threw another punch, hitting Chi Tianji's nose. Under the strong force, Chi Tianji's nose was beaten crooked, making his already hideous and terrifying face look like a horrible ghost, and his eyes were stained red with blood and blurred. Under the action of this force, the body flew backwards. Xiao Xiao. Yonkai burst out a voice. The stone puppet shook the heaven-shaking pillar, kicked out 2 steps from behind, and slammed the black stick in his hand. Boom. Heaven-shaking pillar smashed Chi Tianji's back. The spine of that back seemed to be shattered, and Chi Tianji flew back again. Yonkai looked at him coldly without killing him. He felt that the blow from Xiao Xiao, Chi Tianji had completely lost the power to resist. Like a dead fish, Chi Tianji fell to the ground. After rolling a few times, lying there, it seemed that he had no strength to move. Yonkai walked over and came to him, overlooking him condescendingly. His eyes flashed like a cold blade. Chi Tianji opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but there was no sound. Don't worry, take your breath, I have something to ask you. Yonkai grinned, his sharp fangs were soaked by his own golden blood, and they were shiny. Chi Tianji closed his eyes, as if he had accepted his fate. Yonkai raised his head and looked at Fang Peng not far away and sneered, his eyes full of malicious expressions. With Yonkai staring at him like this, Fang Peng trembled with his hands and feet, panicked, and hurriedly shouted, Sect Master Yang is merciful. The last time on Fallen Emperor Mountain, Fang was just acting on orders. If Fang offend you, this Fang hereby apologizes to you. Apologize? Yonkai pouted, I want you to make amends for what you do. Speaking like this, he pointed his finger at him, and said in a low voice, kill. The stone puppet rushed out and rushed towards Fang Peng. At the next moment, there was a shock and fighting movement from there. Yonkai stopped paying attention. If he were outside, the stone puppet might not have been able to kill Fang Peng. After all, he was a powerhouse of the third order void return stage, and he could still run if he couldn't beat it. But it was different here. Fang Peng didn't have any chance to escape at a total area of only 30 feet. Yonkai turned his gaze to Chi Tianji again, waited for a while, and then said, "How do you want to die?" Chi Tianji also seemed to be relieved, smiled and said, "If Sect Master Yang really wants to kill the old man, he won't ask such questions." "Do you think I will not kill you?" Yonkai looked cold. "At least before leaving this place, Sect Master Yang will not kill the old man. You are worried that you will not be able to leave here if you kill the old man. You are smart enough to know what I want." Yonkai laughed. "If I don't know this, the old man has lived in vain all these years. Sect Master Yang has asked, and the old man wants to survive. Why don't we make a discussion?" "What to discuss? Let's listen." Yonkai moistened. "After the old man is here to recuperate for a while, and after he recovers from his injury, I will let you go. Of course, Sect Master Yang will no longer trouble the old man in the future, and the old man can guarantee that he will not escape the world from now on and will not be an enemy of you." Chi Tianji panting for breath while making a proposal. "Then you have a big advantage." Yonkai sneered when he heard the words, and said sarcastically, "Didn't you mistaking something, old man?" "What's the matter?" Chi Tianji asked leisurely. "I am the sword, you are the fish, and now I want you to do what you have to do." In a low voice, Yonkai stepped out and stomped Chi Tianji's hand fiercely. The sound of broken bones sounded, and the hand immediately changed shape. Chi Tianji's face was distorted from the pain, but he didn't say a word, but looked at Yonkai bitterly. "Let me go out, I will leave you a whole body, this is the biggest concession of this sect master." If this is the case, the old man would rather die here." Chi Tianji shook his head slowly, and said in a leisurely manner, "The old man also knows what the plan is for Sect Master Yang. Do you think you are better than the old man in the power of Space Force? It's much more far-reaching. If the old man can refine the mysterious boundary beat, you must be able to do it too, so even if you kill the old man, you only need to spend some time to leave here." "You guessed it." Yonkai nodded. "If this is the case, Sect Master Yang can give it a try. It's not that the old man despises you, even if you are quite knowledgeable in Space Force and want to refine the mysterious boundary beat here." Chi Tianji smiled secretly. The old man has been in retreat for several decades, and he has only slightly refined the profound realm to open up such a small piece of mysterious small boundary. Now that Sect Master Yang is in it, he wants to refine it internally. It is probably 100 times more difficult than the old man's original refining. 1,000 times. If you are willing to be trapped here for dozens or hundreds of years, you can kill the old man. The old man has nothing to say. Yonkai's face sank. He was a little uncertain whether Chi Tianji was intimidating himself or telling the truth. If he really have been trapped for dozens or hundreds of years because of this, then when he go out, I'm afraid the outside world will already changed a lot. Sect Master Yang must carefully consider it. This matter is very important, and there is no room for sloppy. Chi Tianji said again, putting pressure on Yonkai. His life is now hanging by a thread. Life and death are only between Yonkai's thoughts. Naturally, don't dare to relax. Yonkai looked at him without saying a word for a long time before he suddenly grinned. Senior really wants to do this. There is no room for discussion? Chi Tianji shook his head and insisted, if not, the old man would rather die here. Okay, then you go to die. Yonkai nodded lightly, raised his big feet again, and slammed on Chi Tianji's head. With a crash, it was like a watermelon bursting. Chi Tianji's head burst to pieces. Blood and brain slurries flowed all over the floor. 2 eyeballs rolled aside. It seemed that there was still an unbelievable look. Ridiculous. Yonkai snorted coldly. He was really blinded by Chi Tianji just now. The old man is not easy to provoke. This time, if it is not for his self-restraint, it would be really difficult to kill him. How could Yonkai let such enemy go? Regardless of whether what he said is true or false, Chi Tianji must die. In that case, there is nothing to hesitate. Kill him first. As for being trapped in this mysterious boundary bead, it is not a big deal. Even if what Chi Tianji said is true, Yonkai is not afraid of it. With his own study and proficiency in Space Force, it is not necessarily impossible to find a way to leave this place. When Chi Tianji died, Fang Peng, who was struggling to support himself against the stone puppet, was even more unbearable. He had no intention of fighting here, but now seeing Yonkai so cruel, vicious and ruthless, he was really scared to death. While fighting with the stone puppet, he shouted for mercy. Yonkai turned a deaf ear, not only didn't mean to forgive him, but was also aroused by his impatience. He rushed over and fought together with the stone puppet, and was about to kill him. Even Chi Tianji is not Yonkai's opponent. How can Fang Peng be spared in this special environment? However, in half a cup of tea time, the sect master of Thunder Typhoon sect died tragically under the stone puppet's heaven-shaking pillar. He didn't have the powerful body of Chi Tianji. With the power of the heaven-shaking pillar stick, he was smashed into a meatloaf, and the death is terrible. The two big enemies were annihilated. Yonkai tidied up the spoils a bit, sat cross-legged for a while, and immediately began to study the way to leave here. The tearing of the space is undoubtedly Yonkai's biggest reliance. He was interrupted by Chi Tianji when he was experimenting before, and he did not know whether the tearing of the space had any effect. Now that no one is disturbing him, it is natural to experiment well. To be continued.